Hello everyone, Kelvin here. In this video, I want to talk about why most live stream don't sound consistent all the way through, what causes it and how you can fix it. Basically, what I mean by not sounding consistent, have you ever listened to a live stream where the worship session or the musical session of the stream sounds very full and sometimes loud or too loud, and then when the preacher or the host or a single speaker comes on the microphone, it sounds very low and then you can barely hear, and so you have the listener on the other end of the live stream trying to play with the volume control in their listening device to either increase the volume when the speaker or the host or the pastor is preaching, and then try to bring it down when the musical session or the worship is going. This is very frustrating if you've ever been there, which most of the people who I've spoken to have been, especially in small church settings. And I just want to give you guys a little fix for that. Now, why that isn't much of an issue in a live room or front of house mix situation is because that sounds natural. So basically what I mean is the difference in level between a full worship session and a quieter preaching or host speaking session is usually around 15 to 20 dB of difference. And in a live house mix situation, that sounds quite natural because the worship session of your live mix coming blasting through your large PA speakers are around probably 86 to 95 dB, sometimes 100 dB in some cases. And then when the pastor starts speaking or starts preaching, it sounds around 75 dB to 80 dB, or sometimes even way less than that. And so that delta in dB or level, sound pressure level, seems natural. Imagine if your pastor, when he's preaching in your church, sounds just as loud as your full band. That sounds very awkward. And large PA systems are quite designed to handle that difference in level very well without it being an issue. We just are wired for it to sound that way. Yes, when there's a huge worship session, everything should sound loud. But when there's a quieter session, or when the pastor is speaking, or just a lone speaker, it should sound like there's just one person speaking, and so the level should drop naturally. It's all good, we're wired that way. The problem with that is when you translate that into a live stream mix being played through mobile phone speakers or your home theater systems or laptop speakers or even earphones, this listening environment are not handled to replicate that delta or that dB change probably very well as much as you have with live PA systems. And also you don't have your headphones representing sounds in 100 dB, for example, during the worship session. And so when you bring it down 15 dB, it still sounds reasonably okay. So with live stream mix, you need to find a way of making the dynamic range, which is the highest level during worship sessions or musical sessions, compared to the quieter levels during a lone speaker. You need to find a way to bring that dynamic range to be as small as possible, so that when you have that level difference, it doesn't sound as obvious as it does when you are in the house. And you need to have the listener at the other end of the live stream trying to turn the volume up and down during the service. It's very frustrating. So I want to show with this video, there are multiple ways we do that, and as a matter of fact, it's not just one way. We combine different ways on how we transfer our front of house mix to live stream. We combine different ways to be able to bring that dynamic range to be as small as possible, so that we don't have these huge level deltas in different sessions. And I want to show you one major way we achieve that, which is the simplest method, and it's really the first method you should adopt if you haven't been doing so already. So for that, I will demonstrate with my setup here. So I've got this mixing console you've seen if you've watched multiple videos in this channel already. I have a mix coming here into input 1 and 2, coming from this iPad. I'm playing a song. I'll be playing a song to the iPad, which will simulate a full band playing. And then I've got a microphone, which is this Shure SM58 plugged to input 4, which would simulate a pastor speaking or the host speaking or just a single speaker. And I want to just show you what that level delta sounds like when you're listening to maybe broadcast or live stream, because obviously we don't have a huge speaker here. You're just listening to this via the YouTube, and I'll try not to play with not to put any compression or anything, just so you could hear the raw level difference and how it sounds. Hopefully it sounds like some people's live stream. So for that, what I aim to do and achieve with this is to show you what the problem is, how it sounds, and then show you what the fix is. Using an analog mixing console, and if you can achieve this with an analog console like I'm going to be doing here, it definitely should be able to achieve that with a digital console. With digital mixers, you then have the added advantage of going further to then do compression in multiple stages and then add the final limiter or mastering at the end. We don't have that here, so this video is for everyone, including those who are using just analog mixing console for their live stream. So for that, I'll play set level and check the gain. Hopefully you'll be able to see what I'm doing because I've got the camera on top here. And I want to first of all do gain check. So you see that the inputs coming are hitting, when I solo each of the inputs, they're hitting this 0 dB mark here, including my microphone, which is what we want to achieve when we are setting gain. So I'll just put this on so I'll listen as well and hit play here. So if I solo the left input, as you can see, it's hitting just the 0 dB mark. And if I solo the right input, I've got it's coming in at around the same point. I've already set the gain. And then when I solo my microphone and speak into the microphone, you can see that just the louder, even the syllable just basically kind of went variable. So if I probably increase this just a little bit so that I can just about hit the 0 dB when I'm speaking normally. For a vocal microphone in your church, you want to set this a little bit high so that when the pastor shouts or the speaker or whomever is speaking like gets very loud, you want them to hit the 0. So this is how set gain for a microphone like this. Now that said, with gain set for my inputs and my microphone, so we're simulating here. So basically all our bands and the band mix is all coming in, working, going out through the mixer at the proper level, and the single microphone for the pastor is coming in at the right level. Now what I'm going to do is I'll keep playing the music and let you hear the music, and which will mean you hearing the band in your live stream. And then I'm going to try to speak into the microphone and stop the music, so you see how I sound in the live stream or in the mix compared to the volume of the music. So let's just do that. Now I'll unsolo this.
I'm grown, I figured it out.
So you currently listen to the music. I'll stop it.
Why can't we?
I just muted the music, and this is now what I sound like with you just hearing the music. So if a pastor comes and he's preaching, this is the level you're going to hear of the pastor speaking compared to when the music is going. So if I unmute the music again and let it go through so you hear what that dB difference is.
Cherish you.
Sounds really loud.
We stay.
Another thing that you'll probably see from the mixing console is when I'm speaking, by average, my level is hitting about between -20 and -10, so somewhere in between. But when I let the music go through, you see it jumps up to about 0.
Die in this harmony, never lose this part of me.
So this just goes on to explain that the delta you've got between the speaking sessions of your service and the musical session is around that -15, -20 dB difference, sometimes less depending on the enthusiasm of the speaker or how you've mixed the music. So this is fine, like I've mentioned earlier, with live performances, the front of house mix, when the main speakers are blasting in the house. But this is not natural when you listen to it on the live stream, just as you've heard now. And we want to look for ways to mitigate this. So to mitigate this, what I simply do in my live stream mix is to find a way to boost the solo speaking microphones. So the pastor's microphone and maybe any host, if it's an event that requires a host or an MC or whomever is going to just be speaking, all the speaking microphones, I want them to be the level from the fader has to be higher than the level of all the musical instruments going into the live stream. And for the singers, I know they use microphones. That's quite different because where they sing, they don't sing with normal volume that the speaker uses in speaking. So with singers, you want to mix them like mixing the rest of the band, so everything's all good because they probably will do it. But when it's just a speaker that's different, you want to give the speaker a little bit of a boost. I'm assuming lots of you are using your front of house console for live stream, and to be able to achieve this where you don't send the exact mix and fader levels you're sending to your front of house mix that can handle this delta probably well, for you not to send that to your live stream, you need a separate mix for your live stream. And for some of you want to achieve that by using auxiliary sends, which is where using aux send for live stream makes sense. So if you don't want to use a pre-fader aux send, so you don't have your front of house mix completely disconnected from your live stream mix, because you can't make changes in front of house and live stream simultaneously, you just one engineer, you can also use auxiliary mix, but use post fader aux sends for your live stream mix, so that whatever change you do in your front of house, say you want to drop, for example, any microphone or instrument that's making noise, it also gets dropped in your live stream. You can do post fader auxiliary sends. But this video is not for that. It's not to show you how to route pre or post fader auxiliary sends. I just want to use this video, assuming this mixer with these faders, assuming the main mix you're listening to is your live stream mix. I want to show you what I basically do if I'm using pre-fader or post-fader aux sends for my live stream. So what I do when I'm mixing is all of my musical instruments, I set them to -10. For example, that's my -10 becomes my new 0 dB point for mixing the band. What I mean is -10, I mix to -10 rather than mixing to 0 dB of fader level for all my singers, bass guitar, drums, all the musical instruments and the worship band. I mix them on -10, and then for the speakers or the pastor microphone, I put them at +5 so that I can have that -15 dB difference at the fader. Then when the pastor speaks, he sounds 15 dB higher or louder in the live stream mix than the band, and that bridges the gap, because we've already seen that we have about 15 dB of difference between the worship session and the pastor or the speaking session. So we want to use the fader to compensate for that 15 dB difference. And so if you're doing an auxiliary mix, for example, using aux sends, say post fader to do your live stream, you can have this 15 dB delta in if you're using a digital mixer where you're doing sends on fader, you can have that 15 dB delta in your sends on fader or in the knob. So you already have whatever it is you're sending to your live stream, the speaking microphones or the preacher is already 15 dB louder, because we already know that by default the what comes out from the other end of your live stream, the musical sessions are 15 dB higher than the speaking sessions. For some of you, it might not be exactly 15 dB difference. You might have to bring it down a little bit, or you might have to increase it a little bit, and it might take you a few goes, like a few weeks, to be able to dilate what sounds the best or consistent. So feel free to be able to start and get it to where it needs to be in the coming weeks, but you just need to listen through. You can even have if you're mixing live stream from front of house, you can have a pair of headphones at your console, listen to the live stream, the front of house speakers with your ears coming from the PA system, put on your headphones or earphones, and then solo the live stream boss and see how that delta is, how it sounds there. So let's do the same example we just did. I'll play the music again and attempt to make you listen to what's the music sounds, which basically is us simulating the worship session, and then also speak into the microphone, stop the music, and then hear you listen to microphone level with respect to or in relation to the musical volume. So let's do that again. I'll play this now and unmute it.
We stay around for another dance.
So this is what the musical session sounds. And then when I start speaking to the microphone as a pastor, you can hear me clearly even with the music. And then when I mute the music, I don't sound very far away from the way the music sounds. Basically, if you look at the level meter here, we are about the same point in the level. So when I hit the play button, the unmute button rather, doesn't sound out of place at all. I can even increase the master fader so that I'm hitting about the 0 dB point here, and then I can mute this. You hear me speaking. Basically, just by doing that and having that little bit of a delta, it's completely pushes the level of the speaking microphone or your pastor's mic in relation to the musical session or the worship session's volume. And online, everything just sounds very consistent, which is what you want, because the small speakers used in listening to online mixes in your phone and in the home or in your laptop or headphones are not as capable of reproducing that much difference in level. This is just one major fix that if you probably adopt is going to significantly change and help you a lot. I do understand that if few of you have your main mix being sent to your live stream via Matrix, if that's the case, you can do this level difference in your main mix because it's going to sound awkward in the house. The way it's set up already works fine in the house. So you need to find a way to probably send your speaking microphones to another bus, maybe like a group, and then add that group to your matrix that your main mix is also going to, so that you have a little bit more. The idea is to have more of your speaking microphones in that mix that's going to the live stream, so that online they can kind of sound consistent, the worship session and the speaking session, and you probably achieve the same results. That's the simplest approach to handling that situation. To take things further, to get it a little bit more complicated, we can then add compression to tame things together, and then a limiter to make sure everything sounds consistent across the board. We can't do it on this mixer because it's an analog mixer with lots of limitations, but the video is going to come later when I get my hands on a digital console to be able to demonstrate that. Thank you very much for sticking around till the end of this one. If you got value for this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. And other than that, I'm Kelvin. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.